my study is called A Youth-Led Digital Education Intervention to improve blood pressure for hypertensive adults who present to the emergency department. So some background, hypertension is a big problem. It's the leading risk factor for death and disability adjusted life years. And it's very prevalent in the US. And about a third of US adults have hypertension, and of those, over half have uncontrolled hypertension. Racial minorities are at higher risk of morbidity and mortality than non-minorities. And the emergency department is an important place to think about intervening for patients with uncontrolled hypertension. There's a higher prevalence of uncontrolled hypertension in the ED. And we know too from the literature that a barrier to hypertension control is a lack of hypertension knowledge, especially that which is culturally sensitive and relevant to the population. And we know that a facilitator is social support. So the objective of this study, again, we're targeting an ED population that may otherwise have no interactions with the healthcare system, and for that reason can be difficult to reach for interventions, but they're at risk for morbidity and mortality from a disease that can be controlled. So there's the incorporation of youth that will act as teachers and learners themselves of hypertension education, and then they'll teach health information to hopefully act as a catalyst for adult change. They'll also provide social support for their adult pair. Youth also can be very enthusiastic, and they may better inform community members about their health than professionals who may live outside their community. There could be language differences between health professionals who are treating patients, whereas a youth who's living in the home may better communicate in that language, as an example. Also, youth are strongly vested in the health of their family members. So I think of it too as kind of like having kind of a community health worker living with them. So, if a youth is teaching their adults about eating healthy and exercise, the fact that they're living together, they can remind them, they can help them, they can go for a walk with them and things like that. So this study really is centered around an intervention that is a youth-led hypertension education digital badge. So a digital badge, for those who don't know what it is, and we used it in the Champions program a bit in Chicago, but it is basically about 6 or 7 modules of information. It's digital, so it's online. And for each module, the user does something. So they might go to a website, they learn about things, they learn things, and then they have to do something. So they have to have evidence that they then submit for that module to count. And that evidence goes to a central place. For this case, it'll be to me or the research assistant to approve and make sure that it's done correctly. And so they do that for each module. And once they've done the entire playlist satisfactorily, they get a digital badge. And this digital badge is something that that they can put on LinkedIn, or they can put on resumes as they apply to jobs or as they apply to college. And if someone clicks on the digital badge, they can see all of the things that they submitted as evidence. So it's a good kind of talking point, and it's a good, it can show their interest in health advocacy if they're applying to something. These will be adults with self-reported hypertension, and I'll have about 10 to 15, and youth 15 to 18, again, about 10 to 15 from the local community. And we'll be conducting user-centered design sessions of small groups, 3 to 5 or maybe bigger, to provide input on the development of the digital badge with an iterative process of making changes to the digital badge based on their feedback. It will be starting in July 2021. So the award doesn't actually start until July 1st. And so the sessions I'd like to have, as close to that as possible. And they will be remote sessions via Zoom. They'll be led by myself for the English sessions, and I'm recruiting a Spanish-speaking RA for the Spanish session. And so my questions for the panel are really, what's your input on where I can recruit adults for hypertension, and where can I recruit youth 15 to 18 for these sessions?
Thanks, Sarah. That was a very helpful presentation. Before we jump into your questions, do any of our experts on the call, do you guys have any clarifying questions for Sarah?
One of the things we found was that, in a lot of Latino immigrant families, there is a tendency for parents to lean on teenagers in a way that many people in this country don't do. They depend on their teenagers for lots of things. They depend on them for translation, for babysitting, to go to the bank, since a lot of it is the parents, many of them are undocumented. And the interesting part about it is many of the adults, they didn't get past like 4th or 5th grade in Mexico. So, their kids are at the point where they're in high school. They're starting to talk about going to college. They were born here, almost all of them. So they're likely to be citizens. They're going to vote, So there's a lot of incentives to keeping that dyad, that parent-child dyad intact if you can do it. It's interesting that a lot of the kids kind of like the idea of being able to I wouldn't say to being able to push your parents around, but being able to influence them in a positive way,
I was going to suggest that you do parent and or legal guardian, because in New Brunswick, we have some kids who are living with a legal guardian because their parent either got deported or never made it to the United States. Some of these kids were sent with a grandparent, and you'll have to have legal guardianship, knowledge that they really are the legal guardian. But I think all the kids have it because they need it for school.
So actually, this is a question about the design concept. I assume the adults and the kids are going to be in different groups when you're talking to them, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so for those kids groups, then it's really about making sure that you have all the materials for them, because you can't on the fly like we did with ours. It was sort of like, well, if you're on the Zoom, then you're agreeing, which they are sending, but you're also going to need that extra level unless your IRB allows you to waive pieces of it. So
I saw, John, you put a question in the chat about youth pre-med high school programs. There is a science and tech high school in New Brunswick. The only problem is when you go through a school system, you have to go through a process that's probably as bad or worse than the IRB. In that you have to get permission from the school board. And depending upon the time of the year when you start this, some of these bodies don't meet during the summer. Some of them have kind of irregular hours.
The other place would be to talk to the Civic League of Urban New Brunswick, because they run an after-school program, and I think it's somehow outside of I don't think you need to get the public school permission to speak to the students in that program, but I can connect you with the folks at the Urban League.
yeah, the other thing I was gonna just suggest is, I know the Cancer Institute is running a program called Are You Yes, which is for high school students this summer. And so I don't know how porous your New Brunswick borders are, or if you would be interested in talking to kids who are coming to programs like that are on site, but that may be another opportunity to partner up with those folks and be able to get a captive audience of people who have an interest in health as well.
Chandler actually runs a clinical site out of the New Brunswick High School, which serves patients both. They don't have to be affiliated with the high school, so it serves patients on that border a lot.
Yeah, the other thing I was thinking about is you have a number of churches in the area. And I'm thinking about like First Baptist of Lincoln Gardens has got a pretty active health ministry. And so again, if you think of like tiering this in terms of different types of strategies and the different groups that you want to get to, you may want to actually think about them as an outreach vehicle, because they have a very large congregation.
I was also going to offer the idea of potential for recruitment of it being at a barbershop potentially. I know when I was an undergrad, I volunteered for a program called Cut Hypertension at Penn. And essentially we went around barbershops in West Philadelphia and took their blood pressure and like provided reading material.
The library could be an avenue, perhaps. They have a lot of different programs, and the New Brunswick Library is very active.
You know, the one thing that we found was that the kids were really interested because this was something that tied them to Rutgers. You know, sometimes it seems like the university doesn't do much to engage the community and to engage youth in the community. And so this is, you know, this is a way of kind of pulling the two pieces together and saying, you know, hey, this is what we do here. You know, if you think this is interesting stuff and you might want to do this for a living someday, we're happy to talk to you about it, you know. And so I think that's, you know, the potential for how your study could then benefit other, you know, other kids in the future, I think is good.
This is great. I'm excited. I'm excited to kind of like hit the pavement and figure all this out and get to know, you know, I mean, I don't know much about New Brunswick and the New Brunswick area. So I feel like this will actually be kind of helpful for the future. Thank you, everyone. I really appreciate it.
All right.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you, everyone.
Thank you.
Take
Take care, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.